Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie, and in today's video I'm going to be teaching you how to make this little pickle friend here. This is from my own written pattern. If you'd like to purchase the written pattern, you can find it on my Etsy shop. I'll put the link in the description down below. We're going to be doing a complete tutorial guide with this guy. This is a very easy pattern, good for beginners. The materials that you are going to need, I'm going to list here on the screen. So grab those materials and then we are going to get started on making our little pickle friend here. Alright, so to be able to start making your pickle friend here, you need to grab some of your materials. I am following the pattern here. I'm grabbing a 4.25mm crochet hook. You can use whatever hook size you like. I know that for me, using a hook size less than what's recommended for the type of yarn helps create tighter stitches, and it looks, for me at least, it looks a little bit neater and you have less chance of having like gaps between your stitches. I'll also be grabbing a stitch marker here to keep track of all my rows. I'll be grabbing my 4-weight medium green yarn here that I'm going to be using. Again, you can use whatever type of yarn that you like, whatever color you like. Just know that if you use a different type of yarn or a different hook size, it's going to change the size of your project. If you use a plushier yarn, it's going to almost double the size of the outcome of your pickle. Again, make it your own. If you want to make it bigger, definitely use a plushier yarn. So to begin, I'm going to make a magic circle here, and I'm going to be single crocheting 6 into that magic circle. The way that I make my magic circle here is I just twist around up over here. I insert my hook underneath this front loop here, grab onto this yarn and pull up. And once I've pulled up, I kind of pinch here and I do just a chain 1 to keep it in place, like so, just like that. Once the chain 1's in place, I'm going to be doing a total of 6 single crochet into the magic circle. This chain 1 does not count as a single crochet stitch. So I'm just going to insert into the circle, grab my yarn on my hook here, loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, single crochet. That's my first single crochet. I'm going to do that 5 more times. So go into the magic circle, grab my yarn and pull up. I'll have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What I like to do, some people like to put their stitch marker in the first stitch of every row. I like to put my stitch marker in the last stitch of every row. So I'm just going to insert it into that 6th single crochet here. And then I'm going to pull with our tail end here, just so that way we can close this circle up. Next, for round 2, we're going to increase into each stitch. So what that means is we're going to do 2 single crochet into each stitch for a total of 12 stitches by the end of round 2. So I'm going to make sure that I go into the correct stitch here. So I start at my stitch marker and I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I insert my hook into that single crochet there that I acknowledged was the 6th here, and I'm going to do 2 single crochet into that stitch. That's 2. I'm going to continue to do that all the way around. This will be 12, so I'll do 2 single crochet in this last stitch. Place my stitch marker back into my last single crochet here. And that will complete round 2. Round 3, what we're going to do next is we're going to continue to increase. However, instead of increasing into each stitch, we're going to do 1 single crochet, increase, 1 single crochet, increase, all the way around for a total of 18 stitches. So in the first stitch here, I'm going to do 1 single crochet. I'm going to do an increase in the next stitch over, so 2 single crochet into this stitch. Next one's gonna be 1, increase here, 2, all the way around. In this last stitch here from my last increase of round 3. For round 4, what we're going to do is we're going to still be increasing, however, instead of what we did for the previous round, which was 1 single crochet, increase, 1 single crochet, increase, what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, increase. 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, increase. And we're gonna go all the way around just like that for round 4. So I'm gonna 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, increase, so 2 in this stitch, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, increase. And by the end of round 4, you should have a total of 24 stitches. Single crochet in this last stitch for a total of 24 stitches here. Then I'm going to replace my stitch marker here, and we're going to move on to round 5. Now for round 5 through round 22, what we're going to be doing is you're just going to be single crocheting into each stitch around all the way up. But as you work along your rounds, you're going to add some bobble stitches wherever you'd like for bumps on the pickle. So if we look at this finished one here, I have little bobble stitches in random spots just for little bumps on our pickle friend here. You can place as many or as few as you'd like. I am going to go over how to do a bobble stitch, so if you don't know how to do that, don't worry, we're going to go over that. For round 5, I'm just going to single crochet into each stitch for round 5, and I'll meet you back at about round 6 here. I'm at the end of round 5, and what you'll notice is as you just single crochet around, your work should start to curve up a bit. This will be the bottom of your pickle, and as you continue to work up, it's going to continue to curve and then straighten out, so then you get the pickle shape. This is just at the bottom of the pickle. And then for round 6, I'll show you how to do a bobble stitch here. So I'm just going to do a couple of single crochet just to kind of move away from the stitch marker a bit. And then to do a bobble stitch, what I do is I take my yarn, wrap it around my hook, I insert into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up, so I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm not going to pull through these loops at all. What I'm going to do is yarn over and insert my hook into that same stitch again. I'm going to yarn over, pull through. I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on my hook. And then for a final time, I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook, insert back into the same stitch here. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull up. And I will have a total of 7 loops on my hook. Then from here, I will yarn over, pull through all 7 loops here, just like that. And then I will continue to single crochet into the next stitch next to where we just did our bobble stitch. When you do a single crochet, you have your first little bump. And again, you can add these wherever you like, but we're going to continue to do this all the way through round 22. So once you get to round 22, we'll meet back up and we'll go from there. Okay, so I just finished up round 22. Following the pattern, we're going to move on to round 23. This is where we're going to start to do our decreases. So for round 23, we're going to single crochet, decrease. I'm going to show you how to do the invisible decrease in order for it to have a smooth transition out. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then to do a decrease, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the front bar of this, both of the next 2 stitches to decrease. So what I mean by that is I'm going to go through this front bar of this stitch. I'm not going all the way through the stitch, I'm going just through the front part of the stitch. And then I want to go through the front part of the next stitch as well from here. So I'm gonna wiggle my hook in there. I'm in the front stitch of that single crochet as well. I'm gonna take my yarn on my hook and I'm gonna pull through 2. I'll have 2 left on my hook and pull through all the way. And that is a single crochet decrease. We'll do it again. So I'm gonna go to the next stitch over. Single crochet, single crochet, and then for decrease, up, up. And it's going to give you a nice smooth transition. You can't really see the decreases all that much, which is nice. And I'm going to continue like this for round 23 all the way around, doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease. And at the end of round 23, you should have a total of 18 stitches. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my safety eyes. If you don't have safety eyes or you don't like to use them, you can certainly embroider the eyes. But I like to use 8mm safety eyes. I'll just kind of find a good spot here for the first eye and kind of take a look. And I like to have at least 4 stitches in between my eyes for spacing. So I just count those out, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the 5th stitch, I'll put that eye and I'll kind of just take a look and see if I like that spacing, which I do. If you want them closer together or farther away, you are more than welcome to play around with the spacing before you snap in your safety eyes, but I like where these are. So I'm just gonna go ahead and snap these into place with my backings here. So now that my safety eyes are locked into place, I'm also gonna start putting some polyfill in there, some stuffing to start shaping the pickle before we close the top too tightly. Just take some of this polyfill here and I'm just gonna kind of just start to shove it into the pickle just to start giving it some shape. We may have to stuff it more as you close it, but you can just kind of add as you go with every row just to keep it nice and plump. You don't want to overstuff this because that's how you stretch out the stitches, and then you can be able to see the polyfill through the pickle, and you don't want to do that. So we don't want to overstuff this guy for sure, but we do want him to keep his shape. So I'm going to move on to row 24. I'm going to do 1 single crochet, decrease, 1 single crochet, decrease, all the way around for round 24, and I will have a total of 12 stitches at the end of round 24. This is the last stitch for round 24. And you can pause here if you feel like you need to add more stuffing to your pickle. You may. Like I said, you don't want to overstuff it, but you don't want to have it be too soft and squishy where it won't hold its form. Like, it's definitely looser up top here. So I am going to add a little bit more stuffing to my pickle here. And then for our last round, round 25, you're going to just do a decrease all the way around for a total of 6 stitches at the end. Before you continue on to round 25, I would just make sure that you have a pretty adequate amount of stuffing in, because it's going to be hard to put any more in once we complete round 25. If you want to make sure it's plump enough, just add a little bit more before you complete round 25. But we're going to do round 25, so we're just going to decrease all the way around for a total of 6 stitches at the end. So now that round 25 is complete, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving myself enough of a tail to sew with. So I'm just going to snip right there. That should be more than enough. And I'm just going to pull up so that my yarn comes through that last decrease stitch that we did. Then I'm going to take my yarn needle here, and I'm just going to thread the needle with this yarn here, and then we're gonna just weave the top closed to finish it off here. There's just a little bit of a gap up top here. So what I like to do is I just go in between the top stitches, back and forth a couple of times, the ones that are right next to each other, and secure it shut. And then to hide my yarn, what I like to do is I go through the top and then come out either the bottom or the side. Just enough to kind of hide the yarn in, and I will snip my yarn. Okay. So to shape the pickle, if you're having a hard time or you feel like it's lumpy, what I like to do is I like to just take it between my hands and just lightly kind of roll it back and forth. This helps shape the polyfill inside and gives your pickle a better dimension. And then it comes out like that. So it's a lot straighter. It's not super lumpy on the top or the bottom. Everything's evenly distributed throughout the pickle. Now to finish embroidering the face, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some white acrylic yarn. You only need a little bit of each here. So I'm just gonna take probably about, I don't know, that much of the white acrylic. I'm going to do a small little snippet of black acrylic. Don't need a lot of that either. And then I'm going to do a little snip of pink acrylic. You can use any shade that you like. I like this shade just because it's nice and bright, and I like the way it contrasts with this green. And again, you don't need a lot of that either. Just enough to embroider the face. So what I do is I like to start with the eyes. For the whites around them, I'm just gonna get my yarn onto my needle here, and then to get the whites around the eyes here, what I like to do is I take my needle and I kind of just come in from a random spot on the side. I don't go too far back, but just kind of close-ish to the eye. And then from here, I find a nice little spot on the bottom of the eye. It might take a moment to find the spot that you want. So right at the bottom, and I'll pull up. I don't want to pull all the way through. I do want to leave a little tail of white kind of hanging off the side here. And then to make the white go wrap around the eye, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find a nice little spot on top of the eye that works for me. You might have to try to get into the right spot a couple times, just depending on what you want it to look like. And when I try to come through here, I'm gonna go to the top of the other eye across. And once I found a good spot to come out of here, I'm going to slowly pull the white through. And you don't want to pull tight because it'll just go right behind the eye. So what I like to do is I go nice and slow. And as we get towards the end here of the eye where you're going to be having it shape around the eye, I just kind of hold it. So then it kind of just lightly wraps around. You might have to try it a couple of times to get it the way you want to. But again, you don't want to pull it too tight because then it's not going to look the way you want it to. It's going to just hide behind this little safety eye here. And then kind of the same thing for this side, except I'm going to go into the bottom of this eye here to make it even. Find a nice little spot for that. And then I like to go out the same stitch here that I went in with. So I'm going to push my needle through and I'm going to find that same stitch. Once I'm coming out of the same stitch, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to slowly kind of just pull the yarn out through that stitch there, just so that the eye kind of wraps around just like that. What I do from here is I'll take both ends of the yarn and I'll just tie a quick little knot, not tight, just enough to kind of keep it so that the whites of the eyes are not going to like fall out of place or anything like that. What I like to do is I like to tuck the yarn into the pickle. So I just take the edge here of my yarn needle and I start to just kind of push it in to the stitch it's coming out of, and eventually it will all tuck into the pickle and you won't be able to see it. Just like that. Next I'm going to take the black yarn and I'm going to make the mouth. I like to do a nice little smiley face. You can give it whatever type of mouth you want. You can give it a frowny face. You can do a straight line. You don't have to give it a mouth at all. It's kind of up to you how you want to embroider the face for the pickle. This is just how I like to do it. Then with this yarn needle, I'm going to come in through the side like I did for the whites of the eyes here. And I'm going to find a nice little spot kind of where I want the tops of my smile to go. So I'm going about 2 rows down and then in between that second and third row from where we placed the eyes. I'm going to go kind of in the middle here and pull up a bit. Again, I want to leave a little bit of a yarn tail out on the side here. Usually what I do is I leave one stitch in the middle on work and I go into the next one, and that's where I'm going to insert my hook. Now, where I'm going to come out, I'm going to come out to where I want the bottom of the smile to be. So what I do is I just go into the bottom stitch, just like that, in between both of the tops of where the smile is going to be. And I just kind of pull. I don't pull tight because what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to take my yarn needle again. I'm going to go through this little loop here that's going to be our smile, and then I pull. Get that little smile there, and to secure it in place, I'll take my yarn needle and I'm going to go into the same stitch that the yarn was coming out of, and I'm going to have it come out to where our excess yarn is coming out here. Once I know I'm in the right spots for both, I pull, and it pulls that smile down. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the white yarn. I'm just gonna tie, not too tightly, but just do 2 little knots to keep it in place so that way it doesn't fall out later on. And I'm gonna tuck the yarn into the pickle. And then last but not least, I'm going to add some blush to the pickle. Again, you don't have to do this, but I like to add blush to most of my plushies. I think it's really cute. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the white and the black yarn. I'm just going to thread it through the yarn needle here. And then once it's in, I'm going to come in through a side again. And this time I like to go underneath, directly underneath the eye, and pull up, again leaving a little tail. I'll skip the next stitch over. So it's coming out of this stitch, I skip the next stitch over, and I like to go into the following stitch. When I go into the following stitch, I'd like to come out to the stitch directly under the other eye over here. Once I do that, I'm just gonna pull. A little blushy face on that side. I'm gonna do the same over here. I'm gonna skip the next stitch over from where this yarn is coming out and go to the next one. Insert my needle here, and then I'm gonna try to come out the same exact stitch that we went in on the side there. Just gonna pull. Your blushy little pickle. Tie this guy off, and I'm gonna stuff it into the body so it's hidden. And that is gonna complete your pickle. All right guys, that is gonna complete this video tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. Your support means a lot. If you're interested in the written pattern, again, I'm gonna link it in the description down below right to my Etsy shop. And other than that, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye.